that was built in 1908 across from the coroner's court. Do you know what a coroner is? Yeah? A coroner, well, it was the location of the city morgue. A morgue where they store all the dead bodies, they cut them up and things like that. Hope you've had your dinner. But yes, so a lot of people believe that that is one of the reasons for the many ghost sightings and the paranormal activity, because of that. However, a lot of other people put it down to all the violent deaths that we'll be discussing tonight. Am I going to be on YouTube? And actually, going back to the Observer Hotel where we mentioned before, that itself, even though a relatively new building, has had quite a large and substantial amount of paranormal activity. And this dates back to 1944, and in one case in particular. There were two people, Nelson Buchanan Grindle and Edna Jean Lund. Now those two were sharing a room at the Observer Hotel together, and one evening all the other guests heard a loud bang. And of course, hearing this, they then go to investigate, and they open the door to find Edna lying in a pool of blood, and Nelson sitting on the end of the bed, shotgun by his side, it's smoking away, and he's in tears. Now, Nelson claims that the shotgun just went off. It was in his pocket, he sat down, and it unfortunately killed poor Edna. He also said that the two of them had actually been living together for 2 years, despite the fact that they were both married to other people. Although he claims that his wife had run away with an American. Bloody Yanks. And, of course, he also said that Edna, her husband, was violent, he was a mean, cruel person, and actually they'd, like I say, been living together for 2 years, and actually had planned to marry. Now, the jury heard this story, and they were so moved, they decided to only give him 2 years. Sentenced 2 years for murder. Once he was imprisoned, his actual wife showed up and painted a very, very different story indeed. She painted a picture of a man who was jealous, who was violent, and actually, on more than one occasion, threatened her with a revolver. Anyway, like I say, since 1944, paranormal activity has actually, or so it is claimed, been apparent in the hotel. But these have been spotted or heard by guests and staff. So the guests have reported hearing taps turning on, and not just the water running, but the actual squeak of the tap itself turning off and on and so on, and hearing footsteps outside the door, pacing back and forth, and when they go to open the door, nothing. But the staff themselves possibly have the more interesting stories. First of all, quite recently actually, one of the bar staff were closing down for the evening, puts up all the stools, all the chairs, turn off the lights, sorry? Is it open?
Is it still open?
It's being refurbished. It will be open soon. So yes, all the bar staff clearing away all the chairs and such, turn off the lights, close down, and again they hear an almighty crash, a bang, they go down to investigate, and they see the entire room is a mess from all the chairs being tossed everywhere. But perhaps the most peculiar one we'll hear tonight actually happened in the hotel. Only a few years ago, one of the chefs working in the kitchen that evening was shutting down the kitchen for the evening. And as you do, you put away everything, you wrap up all the food you've yet to cook, and that included 2 large rump steaks. Now I've not had my dinner yet, so I'm rather hungry at that prospect. However, 2 large steaks put back in the fridge, this large industrial fridge, and it was closed for the evening. Now the next morning, when he came in, he saw the most peculiar sight. The steak was right in the middle of the room, just in the middle of the floor. No plate, no nothing, and it was still uncooked. So obviously particularly confused, he went to check the CCTV footage. And of course it was dark originally because it was night time. But then he saw the fridge door opening and the piece of meat just sliding out. Now of course this sounds absolutely bizarre. However, the manager currently working at the Observer claims, because he was working there at the time, he claims he's seen that CCTV footage and he swears that is exactly how it happened. But that's just a little taste to get started for the evening. Now, for some of you, obviously you're a bit worried about the tour. You think there might be people hiding around the corner, people I've planted, and the second we go around there, they'll just jump out and shout, boo! Nah, it's not like that. It's just me tonight, okay? So don't worry about anything like that. If that does happen, it's just some drunk weirdo. And actually, speaking of which, it is Saturday night, so probably we'll get people going, or shouting at you, or in one case, a few months ago, someone actually pulling a full moon. Yay, Saturday night. So. If you think back to the early 1830s, this of course being the hill of Sydney, very simply, the higher up the hill you lived, the more money you had, and the less money you had, the lower down the hill you lived. And of course back then there was not any proper irrigation system or plumbing or toilets like that. So, very simply, there was this little pathway, as it were, or a waterway dug, where the rich people would get rid of all their waste and pour it out. And of course, more and more rich people pouring this waste out, it started to gather and became a whole mass and developed a current and just came down the hill to where we are now, Suez Canal, hence the name Suez Canal, because there was no sewer. So this was literally a river of waste, human waste, pouring downhill all the way down to the harbour water. Now, it's not a nasty sight, it's a horrible sight, because actually, if you can imagine, by the time it gets down there, the waste itself gets up to your knees, your thighs, potentially even your waist, literally waist deep in your own feces. It's a horrible, horrible thought. Now, peculiarly, this gave birth to a very strange profession. Does anybody know what a tosher is? A tosher simply would jump into this waste and wade through it and literally sieve through the feces, trying to find anything that the rich folk accidentally threw away, such as stones or jewellery or even coal or scrap metal, anything that they could use, anything that they could clean up and sell. So they would literally wade through this stuff and try and find these items. Now, of course, this provides two incredible dangers. And one, which one's worse, it's your decision. Any ideas what these dangers might be apart from disease? Drowning. Yes, exactly. That's the first one. Drowning. Many Toshers drown because obviously you can imagine the current, and of course it'd be slippy with the current coming down at you, going downhill. If your foot slips suddenly, this waist is chest high. Depending on how strong that is, you may not be able to stand up. So many Toshers drowned in this waste. And there is a second very dangerous threat. Rats. Hundreds and hundreds of big brown rats. Or most likely black rats, actually. These nasty little things, they were hungry, they were desperate. So when they came down this stream, what they saw was flesh, they saw meat, they saw food. So these Toshers sieving through here, every now and again, you get a little nick. Of course, it's painful, but one or two rats you can kick away. However, when there are hundreds of them, too many nicks, and again, your legs go weak, you go under. And it was reported many, many bones were stripped bare down at the bottom. We're not talking entire skeletons, but every now and again, a hand or a leg or an arm. So these bones have literally been chewed away. The rats feasting on this human flesh. Nasty, eh? So anyway, so this comes to the Toshers again. The Toshers tried, when they could, to work in pairs. One Tosher would stand at the side with an oar or a hoe, and they would beat away the rats, try and keep them away from their colleague. Or secondly, they're there to actually lift him out, or him or her, sorry. If they slipped, there's the support. So that's why Toshers tried to work in pairs. However, it was not also uncommon. It was also not uncommon, to my terrible English. For example, for them to pass a precious gem or stone, and then the other Toshers simply to leave. Cutthroat business. They get all the gold then, of course, all the money. So, around these areas, there are reports of spectral activity or paranormal activity, believed to be from deceased Toshers. And these come in the form, as reported, of people, it feels like it's playing with the back of your neck, people almost whispering in your ear. Well, this hotel right behind you here, the Russell Hotel, is one of actual great interest. Quite a lot of paranormal activity has been reported here. And in particular, one room, room 8. Room 8, there's been many, many sightings of the exact same spectre. An old sailor dressed in late 18th century colonial sailing attire. All reports have been from women. So it does appear that actually he only manifests himself, if indeed he does, to females. And actually, only a few years ago, the most famous case of these apparitions came when a couple of backpackers, of course, female backpackers, stayed in room 8. They were asleep one night, and one of them awoke to see this ghoulish figure leaning over her and just staring at her. Of course, she freaked out, she screamed, she ran out of the room, and the friend obviously woke up and tried to find out what happened. She hadn't seen it. But like I say, that backpacker swore that is exactly what happened. That's what she saw. It's clear as day. Now, this story picked up a lot of attention, and so it appeared in a television show, a travel show. And they did a whole piece about this hotel. And ever since that piece, bookings for this place plummeted. Like, it actually almost bankrupted this hotel. And we're probably not doing any favours telling you the story about it. However, other people, obviously, it attracts other sorts of people. You know. Recently, we had somebody on the tour who actually booked a night in room 8 that very night. And we asked them, hey, let us know how it goes. We didn't hear back from them. But like I say, a lot of paranormal activity has been reported from guests and staff. So like I say, guests are reported, particularly in room 8. Maids cleaning underneath room 8 would swear that they'd heard people pacing back and forth, even though the room was completely empty. The bar staff. One night, one of the barmen working heard this enormous ruckus from the basement where they kept the barrels, all the booze. He heard the sound of barrels scraping and men shouting. So obviously confused, he thought they were being robbed. So he ran downstairs to investigate and nothing was out of place. So he then checked the CCTV footage and of course nothing had happened. But yet he clearly heard it. And again, once again, he swears that is what he heard. Very distinctly. Now, as far as photographing evidence or paranormal activities of their own, this used to be the most successful area. And there doesn't appear to be any particular reason why. However, there is one area exactly right here in front of this door. Now, what is believed to be the spectre of the area was the spirits of a murdered prostitute from the mid-19th century. And it was in this area where she operated. However, it's more the activity that's the interesting part. So a lot of people stand in front of this doorway. Thank you for the light. Yes, a lot of people stand in front of this doorway and try and have pictures taken and see what the result is. And a lot of people have reported very strange things, and quite a popular one was feeling somebody tickling their ankles underneath the doorway. So, as if someone is leeching under their hands and giving a little tickle. Others include the door rattling, not as if someone was rattling from all the wind, but actually trying to open it. So, a while back, a young woman, obviously loving the story, came to stand in front of the door for a photograph, spread out her arms and shouted, "Do your worst, bitch!" So her partner then took a photograph. When the photograph came out, it was very interesting because it was all perfectly in focus, except her face had melted. It was literally as if the skin was being pulled away. Now I've seen it and it's a horrible sight. However, there's another photograph that one of our tour guides actually took about 5 months ago. And I've seen that as well, and again, it's very disconcerting, and I try and explain it, and I genuinely can't. So she took a photograph of this doorway with nobody in it, and yet very clearly there are 2 heads with faces coming out of the doorway towards the lens. Very unnerving sight. Encounters. So when I first got this job, I was given a key to this place. So before my tour began, I actually came here to test out that it actually fitted and it worked. So I went inside and explored the ruins myself. And over a particular area, I won't say which, over a particular area, I got this incredibly strange feeling. And like I say, I'm one of those actually that doesn't particularly believe in ghosts. And it was the strangest feeling, almost like ice on the back of your neck. And I said to myself, you know, you're getting yourself worked up. So I carried on walking around. I came back to the same area, and the same thing happened. This time it was stronger. And I tried to shake it off again, just telling myself I'm getting yourself worked up. It's dark. It's spooky. Ooh. And then, when I really tried to leave, I froze. I genuinely froze. My entire back felt frozen. Literally, it was so cold. I felt like I couldn't move. And that exact moment, the lights went off. I phoned my boss and asked if it was on a timer or motion detector. No. She laughed. She thought it was hilarious. So, this is where we're going in now. If I can ask you first of all just to line up there first. Up. All along the way. Now, these ruins are those of the cottages built in the 1820s and the 1830s. They were lost around the strongest paranormal activities. Sydney's own Woman in Black. Like I said earlier, the other site was very particularly successful. This is another. And 1. You now have a bit of time to explore. So feel free to go down the stairs, take as much time. But like you say, try and figure out which point in the room is the strongest source or the point of most success in regards to sights or apparitions. It's different, it's distinct. Unless you have fireflies, you get 5. You get fireflies or glowworms.
I'm sure Eric's got something.
They're the only. Well, I personally don't know. That's an incredible footage. You're absolutely right. That's really good footage. I'll tell you what, if you send that to the email that we confirm, they'd love that. They I mean, again, like this is up for interpretation because, again, most people see orbs as orbs, like just a ball of light. That's how you describe an orb. Then people therefore interpret different colours, but people see colours differently. Having that, again, like that is a clear ball. That's really distinct, actually. In the day wasn't looked upon like it is now, which is like a gruesome form of execution. Back then it was a form of entertainment, it was like reality TV. People genuinely would gather together and want to go to the hanging. Families would sit around at the table and say, hey, should we go to the hanging tonight? If you have a few coins, why not? People would go there, cheer for their favourite criminals. They boo the ones that didn't wave at the crowd. And if you're lucky, you could steal something from the cadaver to sell later. And even if you weren't interested in hangings, think about where we are. We're one of the highest points. You look out of your window, there was no bridge, no infrastructure, no roads, none of this, no buildings. If you looked out your window, you saw the hangman's noose, and you imagine where we are and add another 9 foot up. That's what we're talking here. However, that's not the only horrific event at this site. Look over the water and tell me what you see. Luna Park. One night, a horrific place, obviously. However, one night in particular is what we're going to talk about. 9th of June, 1979. The Godson family having a day out. Jenny and John, the parents, and their two very young sons, Craig and Damien. They're having a day out at Circular Quay, taking photographs, having a time together as a family. They went to Luna Park, had the day there, went on all the rides, tried all the horrible food, and they, at the end of the day, they had enough tokens for one more ride, the ghost train. Whilst lining up for the ghost train, Jenny, the mother, had a craving for ice cream, so she decided to run off, and she said to her boys, "Don't go on the ride without me." When she came back with her ice cream, her husband and two sons had got on the ride without her, and she never saw them again. Because that day was the day of the Luna Park fire, where 7 people died on the ghost train, including her two sons, Craig and Damien, only 5 and 4 years old, and her husband, John. And of course, Jenny was only spared because of her love of ice cream. However, that is not the truly horrific part. See, this is where it gets into the slightly strange story, because early that day, whilst they were searching the key, like I said before, they were taking photographs as a family. And as Jenny took a photograph of her youngest son, Damien, a strange man in peculiar attire came into the shot and put his hand on the shoulder of Damien. And he was dressed in a very strange garment indeed. It was like a cow's head horn and a loincloth. It was essentially a photo bomb. So he came in and put his hand on Damien's shoulder as Jenny took a photograph of her son. And then he went away again. The photograph here, actually, you can Google it, but if you want to pass around my phone, I'm happy for you to do that. This is the last ever photograph taken of Damien Godson. Would you like to pass it around? The last ever photograph taken of her youngest son, Damien. Now, the man in this photograph you'll see shortly, if you've got your own phones, just Google Damien Godson. There's a figure standing next to him. And like I say, there's no reason on this earth why he should be dressed like that. At the time, there was no fair, there were no festivals. It was all very, very peculiar. And no one came forward. No one knows who this man is. Like I said, it's the last ever photograph taken of Damien Godson before his death. And there's been a lot of discussion about who this person might be trying to represent. The most common theory is that it represents Moloch, an Assyrian or ancient Greek god who is linked with child sacrifice with fire. And for those of you interested, the cause of the fire was never confirmed for the ghost train. However, the most popular belief, arson. Is actually quite impressive, especially considering the scale of this. However, the manner of some of the deaths were quite horrific. As you can imagine, dangling up there above the water, knowing that if you fell into the water incorrectly or at the wrong angle, it's like hitting glass. So, one particular death, his platform failed, he fell in, and died upon impact. When they found him later, when the water subsided slightly, they found him still standing upright. That was the impact from falling into the water. He froze in position as he hit the mud beneath. So he was still standing upright when they found him. One particular day, a platform collapsed and 5 men died at the same time, plunging into the water. And perhaps the most gruesome, one man, a boilermaker, part of the chafing collapsed, wires and metal swinging through the air, and it decapitated him. Now, like I said before, 60 is quite an impressive number. However, that's just people that died building it. People that have died since, well, the biggest reason for this, suicide. The first year alone, there was an average of 1 suicide a week from this building. And it carried on for years and years and years. Literally thousands of people have died on this site alone. So as you can imagine, a lot of paranormal activity or feelings, as it were, have been felt around this area, around the bridge. But there are 2 apparitions we're going to discuss right now. One is a bit stranger, and the other one is a bit sadder. The strange one, the workers currently working at the bridge often find very odd items right at the apex, right at the height of the arch. Sometimes it's a shoe, sometimes it's a lady's glove or a hat or something just a bit bizarre like that. One time, less than a year ago, they found a shopping trolley and it was filled with full beer cans. Now personally I would have thought if it was empty beer cans it would be a bit easy to lift up, but the sheer weight of that thing, and actually with many different people saw it. A lot of people took photographs and saw that image, and again people began wondering how the heck did that get there? And of course the lucky workers that found the trolley probably took the day off. However, the last one we're going to discuss tonight is, like I say, a bit more gross. One of the more famous apparitions on this site, again, has been confirmed by many different sources having seen it. It's a worker, apparently in dress from the 1930s, working again at the very apex, seeing a man up there, hammering, working away, before standing up, jumping into the water, but no splash is created. And again, that has been seen many times. And in a couple of cases, people that have seen that image have said that that very night they slept and dreamt of going on the bridge, working on the bridge and jumping into the water before waking as they hit the water. Anyway, that's where we're going to leave it tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on this tour tonight. If you've enjoyed it, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. If not, then any constructive feedback is also welcome. We'd love to improve as much as we can. I will be making my way back to the Observer Hotel if you wish to follow me that way. Apart from that, the only thing left to say is, of course, sleep well. And once again, thank you very much.